Roger Kent walks into that police lineup looking like he'd have trouble opening a jar of pickles.
Hand me the keys, you fucking cocksucker.
When he sits down next to the other suspects, Dean Keaton, Michael McManus, Fred Fenster, and Todd Hockney, you can see the difference right away. Verbal looks like he got lost on his way to the library. That's the whole point though. Everything about Verbal screams harmless victim instead of dangerous criminal. His nickname fits because he really does talk all the time.
What the cops never figured out, and what I know now, was that these men would never break, never bend over for anybody.
Filling up quiet moments with nervous chatter and pointless stories. He chain smokes like his life depends on it, and when he talks, he often stutters like he's not sure what he wants to say.
I'm really thirsty. I used to dehydrate as a kid. One time it got so bad my piss come out like snot. I'm not kidding, it was all thick and gooey.
To everyone watching him, the cops, the other criminals, even us in the audience, he's obviously the weakest link in whatever crime they're mixed up in. This appearance completely throws people off. When Detective Kujin sits down to question him, he's not worried about Verbal being dangerous.
I'm smarter than you. I'm gonna find out what I want to know, and I'm gonna get it from you whether you like it or not.
He sees him as someone he can use, someone so weak and scared that he'll definitely cooperate. Kujin doesn't treat this like he's interrogating a suspect. He acts more like a therapist, encouraging Verbal to tell his story while playing the role of the nice authority figure who just wants to help. Verbal's disability isn't just there for show, it's like a weapon he uses against everyone's expectations. We expect criminal masterminds to look scary and tough, like movie villains. Someone who needs help lighting his cigarettes just doesn't seem like a threat. The disability becomes perfect cover, creating a blind spot that lets him hide in plain sight. This trick works because it messes with our basic ideas about what dangerous people look like. We're used to villains being obviously villainous, walking around with confidence and looking strong and threatening. Verbal does the exact opposite of that, and by doing so, he becomes basically invisible to the people who should be watching him the most. When Verbal sits down with Agent Kujin, he puts on an amazing show of being completely helpless. Every single thing he does is designed to make him seem like the least dangerous person in the room. He stumbles over details like someone who's clearly confused and out of his league. The smart thing about Verbal's approach is how it makes Kujin feel like he's totally in control. Instead of being difficult or trying to hide things, Verbal seems almost desperate to cooperate. He volunteers information without being asked, shows the right amount of sadness about his dead friends, and makes himself look like the innocent guy who just got caught up in something way bigger than he could handle. This turns what should be a tough interrogation into something that feels more like two people working together to figure out what happened. Look,
I came clean. I told it like it happened on the boat, so what if I left out how I got there? It's so full of holes the DA would have told me to blow amnesty out my ass.
look at how Verbal controls the flow of information during their talk. He doesn't just spill everything at once because that would seem weird. He also doesn't hold back so much that he seems uncooperative. Instead, he gives out details with the timing of someone who's really trying to remember things while also being careful not to get himself in too much trouble. He admits to small crimes pretty easily to make himself seem honest, but stays vague about the bigger stuff. His body language backs up this whole act perfectly. Verbal constantly fidgets with his cigarettes, avoids looking at Kujin in the eye, and hunches his shoulders like someone who hates confrontation. But these aren't just random nervous habits. They're timed perfectly to help specific moments in his story. When he needs time to think of the next part of his lie, all that fidgeting gives him cover to work out what he's going to say next. What makes this performance really sneaky is how it plays into Kujin's ego and blind spots. The agent walks into that room already convinced he knows who Kaiser Soze is. He thinks it's Dean Keaton. Verbal's cooperation seems to prove Kujin is right while feeding him exactly the kind of information that supports what he already believes. Verbal doesn't argue with Kujin's ideas. Instead, he seems to reluctantly agree with them while just dropping enough doubt to keep the agent interested and feeling smart. The whole interrogation shows that Verbal understands something important about human psychology. People are more likely to believe information they think figured out themselves instead of information someone just tells them. By making Kujin work for certain details while seeming hesitant about others, Verbal creates the illusion that the agent is discovering the truth through great detective work, instead of just being fed a carefully crafted lie. In my opinion, this is one of the smartest examples of psychological manipulation ever put on film, and it works so well because it feels completely natural. The way Verbal creates the Kaiser Soze legend might be the most impressive act of on-the-spot storytelling in movie history. He doesn't just make up lies, no, he builds an entire mythology using whatever random stuff happens to be lying around the office, turning everyday objects into the foundation of a criminal legend. It starts with something as simple as a coffee coffee mug, where he gets the name that becomes the most feared in the criminal world. The coffee mug is just the beginning though. The bulletin board behind Agent Kujin becomes like a shopping mall for story details. Verbal smoothly works real case files into his narrative, turning genuine criminal names into Soze's associates, and random police paperwork into important parts of this backstory. What makes this technique so brilliant is how it creates a story that feels more real than pure fiction could ever be. What makes this myth building even smarter is how Verbal balances making Soze seem legendary without making him unbelievable. Kaiser Soze can't be too much like a superhero or Agent Kujin won't buy it, but he can't be too ordinary or he won't serve the purpose Verbal needs him for. So he creates someone who operates just beyond what seems possible, ruthless enough to kill his own family rather than give in to enemies. The psychological parts of the legend are just as calculated. Verbal doesn't just make Soze scary, he makes him scary in ways that help his immediate situation. The focus on Soze's ability to control people from behind the scenes fits perfectly with Verbal's own situation. He needs Kujin to believe that someone else has been pulling all the strings. The stories about Soze being unpredictably violent create a sense of ongoing danger that reaches beyond what just happened, making everyone feel like they might still be in trouble even though the main crime is over. Kevin Spacey's performance as Verbal Kint works on two completely different levels at the same time, creating what's basically a double character that stays totally invisible until the end. The surface performance, where he's weak and disabled, is so convincing that it completely hides the calculating intelligence working underneath. Every physical choice, from the limp to the fidgeting to the nervous way he handles cigarettes, helps reinforce the illusion of harmlessness while providing perfect cover for strategic thinking. The limp becomes a fascinating piece of misdirection. Spacey never makes fun or exaggerates the disability. Instead, he uses it authentically while making it cover for deliberate choices. The way Verbal moves, holds himself, and interacts with objects all help reinforce his apparent helplessness. Spacey's vocal performance deserves special attention for how it manages to sound both genuine and calculated at the same time. Verbal's stuttering and hesitation seem like real nervousness when you first watch, but looking back reveals how precisely controlled these vocal choices actually are. The stutter isn't random. It shows up strategically when Verbal needs time to think or when he wants to seem particularly vulnerable. The moments of clear, smooth speech aren't accidents either. They're glimpses of the real intelligence underneath, carefully limited to avoid suspicion while still moving the story forward. The final revelation scene is a masterpiece of movie manipulation, working on both story and technical levels to create one of the most effective plot twists in film history. The brilliance isn't just in the surprise itself, but in how perfectly the movie has set us up to be fooled while also giving us all the clues we need to solve the puzzle. We just can't see them until the movie decides to show us how to look. The timing of the reveal is absolutely crucial to making it work. The film doesn't just dumb the truth on us all at once. Instead, it creates a slow realization that matches Agent Kujin's own growing awareness of what has just happened. We start with the coffee mug, a simple, innocent object that suddenly becomes loaded with dark meaning. The camera stays on that brand name just long enough for us to make the connection, then starts expanding outward to show us how completely Verbal has used the entire office as source material for his elaborate lie. The story Verbal told was false, but our interest in it was real. The characters were fictional, but the relationships and conflicts he described felt authentic. The film manages to pull the rug from under us while also validating our intelligence and emotional engagement with the material. In my opinion, the reveal works so well because it respects the audience's intelligence while showing the limitations of human perception and reasoning. But beyond the mechanics of plot and performance lies a more unsettling question. What does Verbal Kint's success tell us about how we decide who to trust and what to believe? The film works as entertainment precisely because it exposes uncomfortable truths about human psychology that go way beyond a crime thriller. We're not just watching a clever criminal. No, we're seeing a demonstration of how easily our most basic assumptions about people can be used against us.